What's up, guys? We are back with another SH Figuarts Star Wars review, taking a look at, well, the hot one for pretty much anyone that buys this line right now. We're taking a look at Jedi Luke Skywalker from The Mandalorian. So this is Luke kind of at his peak, but still very much in our familiar Jedi look for him, but with a little bit of a change-up. So it's a new way to get a Jedi Luke, and it's also kind of a second chance at a better Jedi Luke compared to that older one now. So this guy comes in our standard Figuarts Star Wars kind of packaging. It's a retail release, so he gets the big window. You've got the Mandalorian logo there on the front, and then the side panel's got a product shot, and the back has got, you know, in typical Figuarts fashion, you get some product shots showing how he moves, some of the stuff he comes with, as well as Luke with a few other figures. So let's do it. Let's pull them out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our SH Figuarts Mando Season 2 Luke Skywalker, which, you know, let's be real, this is basically just a new Jedi Luke, right? And I have really been looking forward to this one because that Jedi Luke, the original one, is definitely showing its age at this point. This guy comes with a soft goods cloak, and, you know, at first glance, it seemed to have a much better likeness, because that figure served its purpose for a while. But there's a lot of weird stuff about that original Jedi Luke. Now that you go back and look at it, likeness is kind of wonky. He's got that really weird super gold hair, and then some weird design choices. But I'm hoping this is going to be, you know, the next best thing, the upgrade to Jedi Luke. Whether you want to consider him your Mando Luke or not, it really doesn't matter all that much. So let's see what he can do. See how he moves around. Now, he does have a cape, or the cloak, rather. I'm going to take it off because it does not get in the way of articulation at all. I'm just going to take it off just so you can see what's going on. So there's a lot of good stuff going on with this figure. I think he moves just out of the gate pretty well. There's some nice things to see here, specifically down at the ankles. We'll talk about that. So we've got a head that can, well, it can go off if you go too far. So he can look up about right there, about that far. He can look down pretty decently. Of course, the neck does move as well. You know, all the way around, bobble that thing, swivel, all that good stuff. Arms out at the shoulders. They, of course, rotate. You do have a drop down, and you've got your butterfly. So butterfly gets you not too far forward because of the, you know, the vest wraps, but it does help a little bit to try and cross over. We've got our elbows, which are, you know, really not full double jointed elbows. They look like they are, but they aren't really. So you get about there, which is still pretty good range. We've got ball hinges still at the wrist, so up and down, pretty good range on that, just because there's nothing in the way. And then, you know, full rotation in whatever direction you've got the hinge pointing. Torso is a single buck, so he's going to go backwards and forwards like that, tilt side to side really well. And then, of course, this is also your rotation point, and he goes backwards a little bit, he goes forwards a little bit, and then you can sort of rock him side to side with that ball peg. It's basically just a ball peg down there. So he does have pretty good range. Like, it certainly could be better, but without breaking up the sculpt too much in terms of his, you know, his clothing. I'm happy with how far he can move. The legs go out about that far. Is there a drop down? Let's check. Not really. So you got about that far. Kick about that far forward. Backwards a good bit as well. Of course, you can twist up there at that thigh. And then you've got your knees, which go back only about that far. And then we've got our ankles, which I'm really, really happy with. They seem to be a lot better and more robust in terms of what they're capable of. Forward and backward really nicely. And then you've got, you know, full on rocker right there. Like, that's a broken ankle if there ever was one. So he can rock perfectly side to side. Very, very happy about that. And then you've got your toe articulation down there. So pretty normal for like a, you know, a human Star Wars character, or a figure when it comes to Figuarts rather. So I think he moves all right. I'm pretty happy with some of the upgrades to his articulation compared to that first figure. You know, I'm really liking those ankles. And in general, he moves just pretty fluidly. Of course, the aesthetics on this guy are going to be a big, big factor because, well, it's a Figuarts, so you expect to get a little bit more detail for the price. And in a general sense, I am very happy with the way this guy looks. I think this is a pretty solid Luke. Of course, like I said, this is still basically just Jedi Luke, but it's not exactly. Like, the look is slightly different, obviously, but it's still going to be a good stand-in. If you don't happen to have that first Jedi Luke, this is probably a good one to go for instead, just because of all the improvements, and especially when it comes to the head, you know, the likeness. So, you know, we've got a pretty standard Figuarts kind of body. So you've just got like sleeve arms and pant legs and the high gloss boots, which definitely are very, very glossy. Like, they pick up the light really well. They differentiate them quite a bit. You've got, you know, a little bit of paint, bits and bobs of it here and there on the belt. You got a pouch back there, and this stuff is all hit pretty nicely. You know, there's not a lot of paint on this guy, which is to be expected really for a Figuarts, at least as far as the body goes. But what is there, you know, dot, little splotch of it there, a little bit more over on this side, is pretty well applied, very clean. The change up to his look, you know, the vest, you know, the robe kind of thing that he's got on here, the inner robe, I really like it. It's got a nice texture to it. It does, you know, kind of impede articulation in some ways because they didn't want to break it up, but I think it looks really nice, and it on its own breaks the figure up too, because he's not the same shade of black throughout. He's not just this black void. There is something else here with a slight different color and a defined texture too that's going to pick up the light. So it'll help make him just not be so plain in many ways. Not just a black shirt. There's something else black, and it just happens to be sitting on top of it, but it somehow works. So I think he looks pretty decent in terms of just the overall design of his costume. And then this head sculpt and the face printing, I mean, I'm probably going to have to say at this point, this is the best Mark Hamill likeness we've gotten at this scale, you know, at least as far as this era of Hamill goes. I don't think it's perfect by any means, but we're going to do a comparison to the other Luke Figuarts, and it's a night and day difference when it comes to the likeness to Mark Hamill here. So face printing is pretty decent. He does have like a 1,000-yard stare though, and he doesn't have any extra head sculpts. I know he very much shows like no emotion in this particular instance in the Mando. So, you know, they kind of gave him the look that goes with the show, but I really wish he had a slight expression or maybe something a little bit less, I don't know, almost crazy. But the likeness is definitely there, much improved from the original Figuarts Jedi Luke. And then I think it's better than the current Black Series offerings as well. But it's definitely a pretty solid, if not exactly perfect look for Luke here. The one thing that does seem to be a holdover from that original figure, though, and maybe not as bad, but he's still got this like metallic hair. Like this is metallic brown basically this time instead of like a flat out gold in comparison to that first figure. It's really weird. I wish it was not that shiny. It does pick up the light pretty well, but when you're not in the most well lit conditions, it looks off. Otherwise, without prattling on too much about hair color, I do think the head sculpt looks fantastic, and then the photoreal is pretty well applied. There is maybe a little bit to be desired there because I think, you know, his expression isn't doing a lot for the character, but overall, a really, really spot-on head sculpt and a really good interpretation of Hamill, you know, when that is historically something that is very, very difficult to just get. Now, of course, we do have to talk about the soft goods because that's just as much a part of this figure as anything else. It's a big defining characteristic for this figure in terms of, you know, giving Luke a full cloth robe. And I think for the most part, they did a pretty decent job here. There's definitely room for improvement, but it works pretty well. I do have a few gripes no matter what. For sure. So, you know, you can see it right here. It wraps around him really well. You can get it to sort of cinch around and completely cover him, have him be like a black void. You've got a wire in the hood. But, I mean, if I'm going to be honest, like, there is so much extra material up here. You could fit a couple extra heads in there if you really wanted to. So you can get it to kind of bunch around his shoulders, you know, have it pulled down. And then you might have to work with it a little bit to get it to sit around his head the way you want, but then the minute you turn him to the side, he's going to be, bam, right there. Tons of fabric. So that's leaving a little bit to be desired. It's not the end of the world, but it's still a thing. And then the one thing that kind of is curious, I wish had been changed, I wish it was fully wired. There's only a wire at the bottom. So while you can get it to pose and you can get it up out of its own way, and generally speaking, it's still very simple to pose, it would be easier if this was also wired. And then it would also stop the wire from sort of like flipping around on itself. So if you move it the wrong way, it's going to want to start to go the opposite sometimes. So you will have to sort of fidget and screw around with it to get it the way you want. it's going to work just fine. It still feels really good. I think it looks great. The black on it is very well done. Like it's a very deep black. Very true black, I guess is the best way to say it. And I think he looks pretty good with it. There are just a few things that I know could be improved. If it had the smaller amount of fabric on the hood, and if it was completely fully wired, it would pose a little bit better. But I am still pretty happy with it out of the box. I don't see myself rushing to get a replacement, although I know there are going to be better ones out there. And then, like I said, here is our comparison to other Lukes. We're going all Figuarts. So we've got our first Figuarts Jedi Luke down here on the end, Farm Boy Luke. We've got our Last Jedi, Hermit Luke, and then we've got the Crate Luke over here from Last Jedi as well. And then, of course, we've got our Mando Season 2 Luke here on the right. Now, most of these, there's really no comparison. It's all about these two, really, the ones on the end. And you can see that they definitely have some similarities, but the face is so much different. And then, of course, the hair is so much different, not to mention the fact articulation has been improved. And he has the cloak now. So, if you didn't have this guy, you might not necessarily need him. It's not exactly the same, but it still pretty much works. And then this is just to give you an idea of how these guys have progressed. This is an early Figuarts, and then this, I believe, is the correct release order, getting to our current Season 2 Mando look. So I'm pretty happy with this new guy. I think he very much fits in here. I'd probably say he's up there with Farm Boy Luke for best likeness as well. A lot of the others have always had something that's kind of wrong, but those two are doing pretty good at getting relatively close to what is traditionally a very hard likeness to achieve. Now, as far as more traditional accessories for this guy, he does come with a decent number. It's not a huge amount, but it's not too few either, I don't think. I really do think the one thing that's truly missing is he doesn't come with an extra head sculpt, but the expression that he has pretty much the entire time he's on the Mando is this. So, maybe it's okay in terms of what they're really going for with this specific scene. So as far as actual stuff, we do get a bunch of hands. So you get a set of gripping hands, of course, gloved and ungloved. You get a set of gripping hands. You get a set of relax hands. You get a set of style pose hands, so force power, force push, and then you get a left sort of cupping hand. If I shoot it across the room, a little cupping hand, or like shaking hands or touching Grogu or something like that. So you've got kind of a specific gesturing hand. We get our lightsaber hilt, and of course this can be stored on the belt because you've got the hook right there. So you do have storage for it. And then you get your saber blades. So the emitter comes out of this, and then you will plug them in. So you get a standard blade. Of course, it's a green blade, which makes perfect sense as far as this time period. It feels good. I used to get kind of worried about the way the Figuarts lightsabers went in and out, but this one fits all right. It feels okay. And then we get this, and I love these. You get like an action swooshing kind of effect, where it's actually in motion. We don't see this at this scale very often, surprisingly. You think by now it would be standard, especially because it's been done a couple times already, but I really like this. This is just kind of fun. I like the ability to have stuff like this in the box without having to go into a customizer. So, you've got a couple different blade options. You can go, in motion or just sort of out and ready to go. And then you got a bunch of hands. So not a bad package, especially when you take into consideration the fact that he does come with the cloak. So overall, really happy with this figure. It's definitely the best of the Figuarts, and Black Series, really, Jedi Luke figures. This isn't Jedi Luke, quote-unquote Jedi Luke, but this is still that same era of Luke Skywalker. He's got a vest on now, and he has a cloak again, but it's the same kind of figure, same kind of instance of this particular Luke. So I'm really happy to have a slightly more definitive version. This is the era of Luke where he was at his peak in terms of just being a Jedi, and that's the stuff I truly get kind of fanboyish over. So I'm really happy to have this particular version of the figure on the shelf in the collection to go along the other Figuarts Luke. So yeah, that's going to do it for this look at the SH Figuarts Mando Season 2 Luke Skywalker. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.